Welcome to the People Strategy Forum podcast. We're a show that guides leaders on how to elevate the workforce so that we believe that people are at the heart of successful organizations. So your team members' well-being, their rewards, career development, it's all essential to a happy and healthy and highly productive workforce. So this show shows you the practical and effective leadership strategies for top executives, senior professionals, and talent managers overall. So we have a full house today with our hosts, and so I want to first introduce to you Howard Neiswitz. And so Howard is a seasoned compensation advisor and strategic HR consultant with over 30 years of experience. And we also have with us today Smit Singla, and he is an experienced HR consultant dedicated to helping small and medium-sized enterprises scaling up globally with cutting-edge practices and solutions. So Smit is out of India, and so we're glad to have him here with us today. And then also we have Shar Miller, and she is a strategy skills consultant. She works with CompTeam and also with the Strategic Thinking Institute. She's a talent management strategist and career and entrepreneurial transformational coach. And so she has a lot of entrepreneurial experience. And so glad to have Shar with us today. And I am the founder of CompTeam. I'm a global expert in compensation and talent management strategies, and love to have this show with you, the People Strategy Forum. And we also have the Rewards Mastermind that is on a monthly basis. So glad to have you here today as the audience. So next is our special speaker that we have here today. I have the pleasure of talking with Angelique Slob. She is the founder of Hello Monday. She has more than 15 years of organizational development and employee engagement experience. And Angelique has dedicated her career to transforming workplaces into thriving environments through cutting-edge people-centered strategies. Her expertise has significantly boosted the productivity and reshaped cultures of numerous organizations, making her a beacon of innovation in her field. So today, Angelique will share her insights on building the abundant organization, a concept that champions dynamic, inclusive workplaces where every employee can succeed. So welcome, Angelique.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be back on the People Strategy Forum. It's always a pleasure.
Yes, absolutely. So first of all, I mean, just for our new listeners out there, so I know you've been on the show a couple of times now, but if you could kind of just give us a little bit of background. I know you love to travel. You've been a global nomad in the past, and I think that it can kind of start framing the discussion today. A little bit about your experience.
Yes, thank you, Sam. So I have indeed, I used to be an HR interim director in large multinationals in the Netherlands. And I did like large projects, mergers and acquisitions, restructuring of HR departments. But the context, and especially that time, was the peak of the movement of the new way of working. And that was basically working where and when you want. And it was rolled out of a concept as a concept in a lot of like the large organizations. However, in my position, I noticed that a lot of companies didn't really go to the core of that movement of like the concept. And that is autonomous workforces with actual results driven management styles. So that transition, the actual transition when it came to culture, management styles, structures, I saw that was very problematic. And I started to deep dive into that. And I went to university to study organizational sociology because I really wanted to know what is stopping organizations to make the transition. Because if we don't know what is stopping them, we can't really help them to move forward, right? And after I finished, I found out, surprise, that most companies indeed didn't really apply that most effective management style for knowledge workers. So I decided to become a consultant to help organizations to become better in that and to transition into more future-proof organizations where knowledge workers can thrive. Realizing that at that time that working where and when you want is not necessarily tied to your home country or in a radius of 50 kilometers or 50 miles from your headquarters. And I came across a lot of digital nomad communities, and I realized that I prefer to serve clients all over the world, rather work with forward-thinking clients in different countries, and not restricting myself in the clients that I could serve, but also not in the place that I was actually staying. So this is almost 10 years ago, and I went on this path of, taking my laptop. I went to Bali, where I started my first ever blog about new ways of working. And ever since, I've been on that journey, learning a lot, pioneering the future of work, traveling and combining a freedom lifestyle, but in a way that is really, really valuable. So I could learn things that I could actually bring back to organizations. And that's, of course, the pandemic came and everything accelerated. And now it's normalized a little bit more to work remotely and distributed. Um, but we still see in the return to office movement that there's a lot of resistance. And my work is not about remote, but it is about adapting into the future what knowledge workers need, but also in the context of future developments. So not only the pandemic has disrupted the way we work and the way we want to transform our organizations, but also Gen Z has different expectations. And let's get started about AI. That is also a huge disruptor. And I just came across the article last week that was a call out, a shout out. It was published on Forbes
Hmm.
that HR really needs to reinvent themselves to become more strategic, more developing themselves to people and culture. And that is what I've been doing for the last years as well, empowering HR leaders. And connecting to this topic of today, I saw that in the article, they mentioned the mindset of abundance as essential for HR people to adapt twice. I was like, well, this is a concept I developed 2 years ago. So I'm happy that I can present it today for the audience.
I know one of the things that we often hear leadership talk about is the mindset, or changing the mindset. And so the abundant organization is uh, is is something that's not unfamiliar to some leaderships. But as we're bringing this into the HR professional, I think that is also a new concept for that particular individual themselves. I mean, really thinking about what it takes to have that abundant mindset. So really excited to have you on today to dig in deep onto that. So first of all, can you describe what is the abundant mindset?
Yes, I have some sheets as well. Maybe it's okay if I just if we just pull them up.
Sure.
Yeah, and then there is like a little bit of. Can I move forward with them? Sorry, we haven't to the next. Oh yes.
Yeah, I think you can go ahead
Is
and.
it okay? Yeah. So this is the agenda. So it's a concept I've been working. So I do have some sheets. Actually, I'd like to take you guys into, and definitely people on the forum, just share your ideas because it's very conceptual. It's meant to be inspirational and open our minds and expand our minds to adopt to different ideas, something that is critical in the next phase for HR to develop their new skills, their new role, and their new position in organizations. So first, we'll look into scarcity for an abundance mindset, as you asked about here, Sam. But then I want to move on to the collective abundance mindset and the impact on workplace design. And in the end, we'll have some more discussion and maybe do some little exercises and just exchange a little bit more. Can I first? I'd like to start this usually with a analogy,
Mhm.
um, and also this is the roots of. this concept that I developed, the abundant organization.
Sure.
So a few years ago, I was involved in a workplace. Um, you don't have to put up all the time, Sam. So I don't know if we can. Yes, I like to see the people as well. So years ago, I was invited by a Dutch consulting agency to help them to implement unlimited PTO vacation policies. And it was a very mature company, and they were very aligned. And it was, first of all, it was more like they were like, we have to formalize the way we already work. So there's not going to be like a huge difference. However, as it happens often with those kind of things, then the venom is in the details. So by the time we were like looking into the policies and some finance budget related aspects that we needed to adjust to finalize the implementation, I could feel the management team. So we were sitting like physically in the same in the boardroom. And suddenly people were starting having doubts, and they were like, yeah, but I don't know how this works, and maybe it's not going to work like that. And uh, people might think that we take something away from them because we were moving from like a maximum of 25 holidays to a minimum of 20.
Hmm.
And when it's unlimited, there's also been this narrative that a lot of people are not taking enough holidays. So people were coming up with all those doubts, and the whole process became to a halt. Into the to the extent that someone said, "Well, maybe we shouldn't be doing it. Maybe we should just leave it as it is." And I was just sitting there, I was thinking, and I said, "Well, if one of the problems is that people want to hold on to those like days that they can transfer to the New Year's, um, that was one of the hurdles." So I said, but why would people want to hold on to like old wrinkled apples from the apple tree through winter if there is like an abundance of apples that you just like, you can pick whenever you want them? And then I felt the energy change in the room. And I also said that, okay, so let's reframe the narrative. Instead of saying you have less holidays, because that isn't, you go from a maximum 25, instead you offer a minimum of 20.
Mm-hmm.
How does it feel? And with both those two questions, I could feel the energy in the room shifting. And I could feel that it was expansive. It was creating a different atmosphere where people were opening up their minds. And all those little details that we've been discussing them for over an hour with no result, they just got solved like that. They were just like, they were off the table. They didn't see it as a problem. At that time, I was kind of like, okay, so well, I used some examples. I moved like the bottleneck forward to results, so it's all fine, and that was it. But it was a few years later that I never really forgot about that moment and what happened there. And I'd like to know from you guys as well, because given the work that we do you have this kind of similar experiences that you could really feel that people shifted from a scarcity mindset or a problem oriented mindset into a solution mindset, from scarcity to abundance? Have you had this kind of experience?
Yes, I think that especially right now, I mean, that we're in the United States, especially where we're in a bit of an economic pause as we're waiting for the election to go forward and so forth. So I think that there's a lot of um, speech in organizations that are somewhat limiting. We're in cost containment and so forth, and so it's not an abundant mindset. When they're doing their communication to their employees, and so I can see the advantage for sure in saying that, especially in times of scarcity, it doesn't it, it's there's ways that we can reframe the communication to be to change our mindset for the future and be prepared for that future.
Yeah. And I found it really powerful to just use an image. If you plant this image in someone's mind, and I did it totally by intuition at that time, right? So I didn't even think about, oh, people are stuck in scarcity mindset. I have to bring them to abundance mindset. But I did it on intuition, and I really saw this shift happening. And it was such a powerful moment that I kept on thinking about it. And so later, I came across, that's very famous, that you'll probably, yeah, I'm assuming you all know, Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where he definitely he coined those two mindsets: scarcity mindset and abundance mindset. And they represent a fundamentally different approach to life. So scarcity mindset, life is an infinite pie. And I don't know, most people maybe had siblings, you had a brother, you had a sister, or more than one. And there's always this discussion about like who gets the bigger piece of the pie. If there is enough, like this person gets, like we had like tomato soup with meatballs, and then my mom had to make sure that she actually gave us the same amount of meatballs in our tomato soup, because otherwise it would be the Third World War at the dinner table. So that is like the idea that somebody else gets something and there is less for you. And that is a very common mindset. But it fundamentally differs from the abundance mindset, where you think there is plenty out there for everybody. So if I get more, it doesn't mean that you get less, and the other way around. So Stephen Covey coined that as on an individual level, that it's really, really a totally game changer. Also, how you approach life and how that affects your success, your relationships, and everything else. So I'm assuming you are aware of this um, concept, right?
Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah. So So if you shift that mindset on the individual level, it means that you can tap into increased creativity, you improve your relationships, you have a greater resilience and hence well-being. It helps you with your entrepreneurial spirit, and it brings more generosity and empathy.
Yeah.
So
So just a kind of going back there, and I know, Shar, you do a lot of coaching with leaders and so forth. And now, do you often see in your initial engagements with leaders that do they have an abundance mindset to start out with, or do you feel like that is that common, or is that something you have to coach into them, I suppose, to draw out?
Well, yeah, in my human resources experience supporting executives and leaders, oftentimes we focus on the finances, we focus on the results, we focus on the market share, and oftentimes I think leaders tend to share the bad news. We're not hitting our initiatives, we're going down. I've seen other leaders that really capitalize on promoting a culture of positivity and collaboration and continuous growth. And I think it's important, particularly, for example, if a CEO is in front of a management meeting, which I've been to many, many of those, oftentimes we have kind of a rotation of the CFO, the CEO, operations, standing up and talking about all of those topics, finance, operations, that type of thing. Where I feel the most effective in the leadership that I've coached is that we really focus on that positive mindset. And also, as we move into the discovery part of this discussion, the most insightful situation is getting the insights and ideas of our leaders and our employees, and assure that we're not just doing a bunch of monologues without capturing the ideas and innovation and collaboration about more of a positive mindset and strategy moving in the future. So I do think this is a skill set that some of our leaders are challenged with. And I see oftentimes I spend more time in front of the boardroom or the manager meetings and just giving a bunch of facts that really don't inspire creativity and discovery. So yes, I totally agree. So I'm very interested in what we have to talk about in the discovery area.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah. That's super relevant. Because like so I had this I had this magical moment where I could just like I experienced a collective shift in a leadership team that just happened, and how the whole energy changed and how we solved all the problems that we saw, and we just moved forward, and it was so powerful. And then when I started to translate it into the concept form, okay, that was actually shift from scarcity to abundance. Then okay, so for me then I was like, okay, what if we can, what happens if we collectively shift to an abundance mindset in organizations? How would our organizations transform? And then of course most important, how can we cultivate this mindset collectively? So and I really invite you to think with me and to join me. And I had the honor to host this, to share my ideas in various communities of forward-thinking leaders and people, workplace designers and people leaders. And it's amazing the feedback that I get. And this is really meant to move forward together, to learn and to exchange.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that, and I like that really fits with what Chara is just describing, we have an historical context of scarcity thinking in organizations. So if you look back to where our mindset about work, the paradigms that we have, are all rooted in the industrial context. And that time, resources were scarce. So we have a factory that is needs input, and that is labor, some machines. It needs a space, and it needs physical resources that cost money. And that input that is, processed, and then it comes to output. And all inputs, the resources, the way we process, because the factory can only go on this speed, and we only have maximum 24 hours in a day, and the output is also limited. So the way we think about organizations and work is, and money and capital is rooted in scarcity.
Mm. And so just submit. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And do you think that different cultures and or different locations around the world have a different perception of scarcity thinking or in the abundance mindset?
I would think so. So I think that's a great question, Sam. In my part of the world, um, what I find is that we're definitely very ingrained on scarcity. So it's often used as a tool to control people in an organization. So one of the challenges I'd see working with leaders is they're not prepared to shed the scarcity mindset because they fear losing control. So when you're able to say that promotion slots are limited, or I only have a certain budget which I can allocate for merit increases, uh, it becomes easier to get people to do your bidding than by creating an abundance mindset. And I'd love to hear what all of you think about whether this seems to be more of an India specific or Asia specific issue, or do you experience this as well?
So I don't know about you, Howard. I mean, I feel like in this is pretty common in just the scarcity mindset. I think it's unusual to hear a leader speak in an abundance mindset. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know whether it's our culture or what, but we seem to always, we have a problem and our first reaction and drive is, what do I need to solve the problem, versus kind of shifting that and saying, well, rather than just focus on the problem at hand, what are the new opportunities that situation proposes? What else can we do? How do we change? Versus the first gut reaction is knee-jerk reaction is let's solve the problem. And I think that's how most companies operate.
And it's interesting because if you look at that scarcity mindset that we come from, like there's no time, there's no budget, we don't have, enough, and the whole, definitely the deeper rooted capital thinking, labor thinking, productivity thinking, input is output, hours. That's literally all you can you can boil that down to scarcity. In comes the era of knowledge work, where what we actually do, the input, is creativity, expertise, ideas, innovation. We work with knowledge and then we can connect through technology with people from all over the world, expanding our resources. Um, and then in comes AI actually now. And so all those traditional thinking about resources are no longer that limited anymore. Don't say there aren't limitations, but they are abundant. There is an infinity about creativity because you can have one idea that can change the world, and that has happened before, and that can take 1 minute. So what? How can we still hold on to that scarcity mindset in a world where our resources, inputs, the way we work, and the output are basically unlimited?
Right.
So is the thought that this is mostly centered around the AI? I mean, I know that there are advances in technology and especially in the knowledge work area, and that's emerging in the manufacturing environment with sophisticated robots and robotics. But there's um, I still think there's the leaders are still in that scarcity mindset. They don't realize that this is emerging. But I'd love to hear your thoughts, Shara. I know you were just about to say something there.
Oh gosh, this discussion is very exciting to me because I've again, I've seen a lot of executives spend time looking at the problems and looking at where we're not hitting our measures and our targets, and particularly in allocation of resources, which also tends to be very scarce. Why not utilize allocation of resources to enhance the positive things that are happening with our company and the momentum where things are working, and instead of trying to fix all the bad, why don't we focus on improving the good? And I think that's extremely vital. And also to your point, Sam, absolutely AI. And I recall when we did a leadership conference, was it 2 years ago on AI, and I could see the faces of the CEOs and executives almost a little anxious and very curious what AI was going to do. Fast speed now for 2 years, the last several years. Isn't it amazing how even our mindsets have shifted, where AI is just a fabulous way to spark innovation and curiosity and learnings and invigorate communication, collaboration, and conversation. And again, this is how we allocate our resources. So I love this. I think it's extremely important to identify the positive.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, I
Thank
do
you.
think there's an emergence of more comfort around some of these new technologies that are coming out for sure.
Yeah, and I think the creativity innovation part and the relationship between input and output has been changing since the emergence of knowledge workers in the 60s. But and now it's going to be accelerating, and I think with other developments that we've seen the last decade, in combination with what's going to happen the next decade, that scarcity thinking that where we came from, like literally the resources, the physical resources, are changing so much into this infinite resources. And I usually like in my workshop that I use like to play and say, okay, tell about things that are infinitive, that are not scarce but abundant. And I mentioned things like creativity, laughter, cuddles with your children. And Sumit is like definitely the person to talk to here. Like, and I know Sumit has such an abundance mindset when it comes to time and family time and creativity and doing different kind of things in the context of work compared to your former career, right, Sumit, when you were like in a more time constraint hour factory, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, this is something I like to talk about. We in India, we're among the most vacation starved countries in the world. And again, that ties into the scarcity mindset where it's become so ingrained that before applying for leave or before going on vacation, you end up starting to negotiate with yourself, thinking, well, I actually would love to have 2 weeks of leave, but if I do that, somebody else is going to get ahead of me at work. I will be denied a promotion. Nobody's going to give me that long. Let me try and target 8 days of leave. And then you talk about 8 days of leave, your boss cuts it down further. You end up taking just a day or two off, or not even that. So, um, I mean, I think we've the dangerous trend is not just leaders subscribing to the scarcity mindset, but an entire generation of employees, especially millennials who've grown up with scarcity or with the scarcity mindset and finding it difficult to adapt, and thereby giving leaders an easy pass.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you thank you, and you also you're talking about a culture of fear, and I think if you go from scarcity to abundance mindset, it basically is the umbrella of other mindsets that we talk a lot about as well, from fear to trust, from problem to solution, from input to output, and to fix from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. And the example you mentioned before, Sumit, about the promotion, was a great example of a scarcity mindset. And I think you're going to be very interested in the next sheet where we talk about that into the terms of culture evolution in organizations. But yeah, before we move there, is there anybody wants to reflect on those different mindsets that we hear a lot about? And I actually think that if you go from scarcity to abundance, you those other mindsets also shift, right?
Yeah. And one of the areas where I'm working with a lot with organizations is the fear to trust. So in my work, I do a lot of compensation consulting, and if companies are not transparent with their pay philosophy and how people's pay is determined, fear is the mindset that generates that company generates among their people. And so, as they provide a clear infrastructure and do training, and managers are trained effectively, that transitions to trust. And so you can see that I've seen that happen over and over again, and know the importance of that transformation for organizations. And so having leaders expand this to other programs is in or all programs, and as a just an overall abundance mindset is perfect. I mean, we just need to get there.
And some the work that you do there in that context and specifically from that mindset to that mindset, can you elaborate how that is connected to scarcity and abundance?
So I think the first thing is when people are thinking that there's limited budgets, in which there always is at organizations, but they have trust that the leadership is going to allocate funds in a fair and just way. That's in alignment with their compensation philosophy. One common compensation philosophy is pay for performance. And so when there may be a fixed pool, that may be true, but when you're differentiating that those funds to where your highest performers are receiving a something that is more fair for their contribution, and they believe in that trust is instilled in them. They feel like the organization is able to reward them in a fair way based on the realities that that company is facing at that time.
Mm-hmm. But there is an element of scarcity. You actually say it. You say budgets are always limited, and if the compensation is allocated to that person, maybe the reasons are really clear and transparent, but there's still like less for me, right?
Yeah, at that moment in time. But what we need to inspire in our people is that with continued performance and with your hard work and dedication to the organization and meeting its mission and vision, that we can create greater abundance in the future. So let's work together to ensure that we're creating more abundance for us and job security and all the great things that come with that.
I like that. I like that. That's also like, abundance is not about only like, there are so many perspectives that we can take and so many little things that we can make the mindset shift to abundance and understanding that, growth there is also helping me grow there. And I've been using a phrase a lot over the last years saying, if the tide rises, all boats go up.
Yes.
And that is also like a very, very abundance minded expression that you can also bring into your organization as soon as scarcity is arising and or like people start to think that there's competition. No, if the tide rises, all boats go up. So if somebody's, rising the tide, you are benefiting from that as well. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of in those different mindsets, and sometimes people point them out like really really great. I do like the bridge about the promotion and the collaboration here. So I've been using the two models, two most famous, I think, organization evolution models. Um, Tribal leadership and teal organization. So, what is a organization evolution model? The theory that an organization, just as maybe human history, that you can go from different stages in evolution, and those are reflecting into the every aspect of your organization. I'm sure people can explain it better than me. But teal and tribal leadership, they have quite a lot of similarities if you put them together in a model like I did here in this sheet. And you can see that I think the lower levels, they lack a lot of abundance. Um, let's I don't want to dive too deep into stage 1 and 2 because these are very tribal organizations like gangs or prisons, and stage 2 is also very toxic that hopefully most people don't really have to deal with as much. If you look at the tribal leadership stage 3, uh, almost more than half of the organizations in the world, at least from their research, um, are in stage 3. So that is how we usually see any corporate organization, and usually it's what happens in any corporate organization. We talked about it before. There is only like there's not maybe transparency about the compensation, who is going to get that promotion. So it's a very competitive, individual competitive situation, and it's how we see work usually. So are you all guys familiar with one of those models?
Yes. My question is how can leaders really elevate the thinking and the mindset among their people to achieve some of those higher levels of um, of actualization here?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think before we answer that, or I think it should be a part of our discussion, I do think I just want to explain a little bit more what those why abundance thinking is part of the higher levels. So I think if you see between 3 and 4, we go from what you just said, Sam, from individual to collective, and also it has to do with how we collaborate, um, how we just move forward as a team to achieve our goals. So I think there is a big shift between stage 3 and stage 4. Tribal Leadership is a really great book to understand and to get some really good points how you can elevate your organization as a leader. Um, yeah, it's a very difficult question because for me, to answer right now, because I'm more on a high level. But I do think it is about when you look in HR and compensation specifically. I use the example often about for example, a bonus for sales teams. So what we often see are individual bonuses, and that means that you bring in competition. So people are start competing about the leads, about who's got a better results, and it's not stimulating collaboration. While if people would be working together and leverage their strengths in a team, and they can have a better results. So that would, for example, having a team bonus and looking more to a collective outcome instead of individual competition, that would definitely be one of the things that you can look into as a leader.
Yeah, I do think that that can work in some organizations. I mean, it really depends on their, as you mentioned, their mindset and culture. I think there needs to be a sense of accountability between people as they coalesce into a team. So if you have, for instance, if you move too quickly towards the team mindset, some people may not are they're still in that not in that abundant mindset yet. They are still thinking as an individual and not as accountable to the team. And so moving too fast before readiness can hurt an organization. But I think that it's important for leaders to set the stage, ensuring that they're holding people accountable, setting clear objectives, and ensure that everybody on the team is heard and is performing well, and to really foster that great mindset.
Yeah, that's the challenge in a team is that if you have people that are underperforming and not being held accountable, then your better performers will actually start feeling, at a disadvantage and disincentivized, and saying, well, why are my efforts benefiting everyone else, and these people are just slacking and getting by and getting rewarded for it.
So may I make a comment here? First of all, if I was the talent management organizational effectiveness strategist for this particular organization, and I particularly think in healthcare because that's where most of my background is, it is vital to move up to those higher levels by analyzing the culture. And particularly in one example is diversity in the culture. So for example, one department like environmental services or transport, which is basically people that take people around the hospital, versus the medical staff or the administrator or the head of chief nursing officer. There are socioeconomic differences. There is diverse differences. There's also age differences oftentimes, and people at varying levels in their career. And I think the scarcity very much depends on that because I think at the lower level, constantly worried about how you're going to pay the rent or pay for groceries versus more of an executive level worried about, their market share and making sure we have excellent patient outcomes. So this is why it's vital to have an analysis of the culture, look at the analytics, look at some of the measurements, and identify a positive talent management strategy to foster that culture. and to and embrace that going up the levels. So it can be extremely complex, but with the right people expertise, I think many organizations should be able to rise through those levels.
Yes, and I think it is also about we have thoughts that like the common denominator. So that level 3 is so integrated in our mindset about work. Like look at any television series, you can always see it is about competition, and we've been brought up with that idea. This is what work is. This is what an organization looks like. This is how we need to behave, and it's normal. Like it starts in school, right? So it's about your grades and who's going to be the best in class. So looking into those different kind of practical tips for implementation, and I think if you start look at yourself, really look at your own mindset, make sure that you are aware of what mindset am I currently in. Am I talking from my scarcity mindset or abundance mindset? Foster your balanced thinking in your daily activities, and then create a culture that is use those kind of abundance words. Like if you come across this situation, use this word as like the apple tree analogy is a powerful example, but also saying if the tide rises, all boats go up. Make sure that you can use your words very powerful to change the atmosphere and the mindset in the room that you're talking to. It starts with yourself though. So you always have to feel like, am I in this like there's not enough feeling, or are you going to be like in a feeling like, well, let's see how we can approach this from a different point of view that is opening possibilities and new solutions instead of closing us down.
This is great, Angelique. And so, as we're coming to a close on our discussion today, I mean, what are the things that you think that are the most important for leaders to take away from this discussion overall?
I think the awareness that the average thinking about organization is coming from a place of scarcity, but that we are moving with everything that's happening in terms of knowledge, work, creativity. What we need to be successful in organizations is actually abundant. And just put yourself in that situation as a person, but also as a leader. Put yourself as often as you can into an abundance mindset, and see how things are changing, and how you can, from that place of abundance, maybe you can come up with new solutions and new creative solutions, and to see what happens. And then you go through those stages of and from that place you can go through those stages and bring your organization to a higher level.
Great. Well, Angelique, for those listeners out there that want to learn more about this and how they can start an abundance mindset in their organization, how can they reach you for questions?
Yeah, the best is to reach out to me on LinkedIn, Angelique Slob, and then you can find me. We can have a chat. I have a lot of resources there as well. My abundance mindset. This is a workshop. It's more inspirational, and it's really to get a mind expanding, mind bending ideas about bringing some inspiration that people can look at a different way, look at work from a different perspective. But it's part of my broader offering to help organizations to be future proof, to be prepared for challenges ahead, and to integrate innovative people strategies in their organization. And I'm happy to have a just like a discovery call, or just change some ideas. And find me on LinkedIn. It's just the easiest.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Angelique, for talking to us about the abundance mindset today, and It was really a delightful discussion. I really want to make sure that I'm more conscientious myself to ensure that I can think with that abundance, because often, it's easy to go the other way for sure.
It's normal.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you everyone for
Thank you.
Thank you
joining
for
us
your
today,
input.
and
Okay.
we'll see